So, have you ever wondered what it takes to go ahead and build a software as a service tool? Well, in this session, we're going to be exploring all about that as we have Jamie Maguire talking to us all about the tool that he's built called Social Opinions. Listen in as we find out more. Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Cloud with Chris. You're with me, Chris Reddington, and here we talk about all things cloud. Now, thank you for joining once again here. We've got a very interesting session lined up today. One of these tales from the real world episodes that we've been getting going here, trying to get a bit more around some of the things that people have built, exploring how they've built them, why they've built them, just so you can get a bit more of that real world architectural insight and development stories there as well. So you know the deal. If you like this episode, please go ahead, hit that like button, and of course hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you know as soon as there is new content available for you to listen to. And it does help. We do listen to that because then that helps us influence the roadmap of the content that we're bringing out as well. So please do go and do that. So with that, wasting no time at all, we're going to go ahead, jump straight in because we've got a super session lined up here. So let's go ahead and introduce Jamie. And there we go. Hey, Jamie, how are we doing, sir?
Hey everybody, I'm good. Chris, how are you?
All doing good, thank you. All good. Thank you for joining. I've been looking forward to having you on the show, so really looking forward to chatting here.
Yeah, I'm excited to for the invite and much appreciated to bring me onto the show.
Excellent. So, I guess for folks who don't know you, I know we've been back and forth on Twitter a few times and some other recordings and whatnot, but maybe let's start with some introductions there first, Jamie.
So ultimately, I'm a developer by trade. Been building web apps, architecting them. I was a contractor for a while. And about 5, 6 years ago, I was working on a research project that took me down the AI and ML path.
Mm-hmm.
Or to be more specific, like text analytics,
Sure.
machine learning. And my focus is right now at the minute is Azure Cognitive Services, Microsoft Bot Framework. And I'm a blog weekly on my blog. And I'm heavily invested in all that stuff. Been working with Microsoft technologies for about 20 years. And those are sort of like the highlights.
Excellent.
And I could just see a mini me rolling about in the background. So.
Co-workers, that's all good. So I guess then one of the things that we've brought you onto the show to talk about a bit here is something you've been building as well, a tool called Social Opinion. Or Social Opinions. You've got socialopinion.co.uk. So maybe let's explore that a little bit and first give a bit of a teaser about what it is you've been building and why you decided to kind of embark upon that.
Yeah, so Social Opinion is a Twitter analytics and productivity platform. The origins of it lie back in an API that I had built many years ago as part of a master's degree that I was working on outside basically full-time employment. I was a consultant at the time, and I just started to get really interested in that space. So it was like a 3-year course that I'd done outside in my day job. And in the final year, I built an API. And the key feature, if you want to call it that, of the API was that I could point it at Twitter and basically surface like stronger performing keywords and sentiment, and then elicit. And it went through quite a bunch of different iterations. And basically, it was an API built in C#, running in .NET. And about a year, I sat on it for about a year. I completed the dissertation in Bayesian theorem and text analytics. And I caught wind of an API, an initiative that the Twitter development and marketing team were running. It was called Promote. That kicked off in about 2016. I'd completed the master's in about 2013 or 2014. And I started to join a few dots, and I thought, I could probably put a web app or a web front end on top of this API and turn it into some kind of web application. Submitted that web application to the initiative. And what was pretty cool was they ended up, it caught their eye, and they ended up inviting me over to the States. And then basically there was like a cash prize for this initiative, and
Awesome.
and that, I'll cut a long story short. They ran that initiative for 3 years, and I've just built out the tool and kept building it out and building it out. But around about 2016, 2017, I know that cognitive services was really starting to get a foothold. And what I'd done was I swapped out my custom API for cognitive services, and then it started to morph into this bigger solution. Because what I was able to do was not focus so much on the Bayesian theorem and the custom API. I was able to actually focus on features rather than all these algorithms and trying to work out the accuracy of the training data and all that stuff. I was just able to build features, and it turned into like a SaaS solution that people can use to manage and maintain their Twitter account for social listening using keywords. There's a scheduler in there that lets people schedule tweets so they don't have to be stuck on their phone. And there's audience insights capabilities that help you understand what your followers are talking about. And then there's heat maps that let you know when they're talking about those topics. And then so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. And basically it lets you better understand your audience, how to better serve them, how to free up your own time, and put the feelers out with the social listening aspect to help you get a feel for what the public conversation is.
Excellent. No.
Yeah, so that there's a lot going on. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Gotcha. And I think it's such a relevant area at the minute when you think about applications and kind of the transformation they're all going through, right? An application is an application, great, I can go and use it and I can go and do what I need to do. But I think the value when we really start looking at some of the really modern apps these days is exactly what you've been talking about, not just the data, but then being able to almost go a level deeper, understand the insight behind it. And you mentioned, for example, and I'm taking myself back to the days where I did some of my studying for machine learning, etc. as well. Those Bayesian algorithms, etc. you were talking about is taking me back. But I think the value of something you mentioned in their cognitive services helps you almost box that up a little bit, doesn't it? And say, right, that's one component or one part of the application. I'm going to go ahead now and focus on all this other stuff, like you mentioned, and go and figure out the product that I'm going to build around that. So I guess cognitive services was one part of that. What other features are you kind of using from the Azure platform, I guess, overall there?
Yeah, there were. So kind of touched on, there were like 3 separate initiatives that consecutively each year, and I swapped out the Bayesian theorem for Azure Cognitive Services Text Analytics API, and I used, because to peel it back a little bit, right, Chris? What I had was a part of speech tagger to help me basically surface like the combinations of words and phrases,
sure,
like nouns and verbs and proverbs, not proverbs, but nouns, adjectives, and verbs and all that sort of stuff. I would then pattern match against those to help me identify sales leads and stuff, and basically index the people that were talking about particular products, brands, or services. Because at the time, what I could then do was create what I dubbed just-in-time ad tech and marketing campaigns, and that programmatically set up ad campaigns based on the users that were talking about a specific product or service. And it basically, those user IDs would be expressing commercial intent and whatever it is they were interested in. It kind of worked, but it was really tricky. So text analytics got me some of the way there. And then I had this brainwave, right? And I was like, I'm really just trying to infer an intent based on, when people are pretty interested in a particular product or a brand or whatever, you can almost guess how they would talk about that, like, because if they're ranting and raving about it or if they're not. And so the next service that I started to look at, right, Chris, and this is a little bit of an unorthodox use case for this technology, was LEWIS, which is the language understanding and intelligence, or the NLP service. So I had this idea. I was like, I could build an NLP model using LEWIS and then consume that via programmatically using the SDK or the REST API.
Yep.
And that's what I done, right? And that removed all that other stuff.
Gotcha.
So I'd removed the Bayesian theorem algos. I'd removed the part speech taggers that were sort of cobbled together. I removed the headaches about the training data and all that stuff. And then when I was trying to identify commercial intent, I basically removed all that, stripped that out, had the hood up and basically used Lewis. So it was text analytics in Lewis for one iteration, and it worked. I've got a blog about it. It goes back to 2017. And I ran through the thing from top to bottom and about the submission. Yeah, you can pull it up. I mean, there's nearly 200 blogs, right? It'll be maybe on.
We'll scroll and scroll.
Yeah, and it'll be like my submission from #promote. That was the name of the initiative. So there's the earlier one. You can see the evolution, right? My first post, Bayesian theorem, how to implement. Bayesian,
gotcha.
Right, and then if you go through the years, it might be on page 12 or something. You'll see like a submission for a. I'm looking at it. So that was the first thing, right? So, and then there's another one. Have you found it?
Yeah, I can see the #promotes piece that you were talking about a bit earlier, the competition there, and drinking from the Twitter fire hose piece.
Yeah, there's another blog somewhere though, right? And it's about 2,000 words, and it walks through the end-to-end solution. But hey, it's up there somewhere.
Yeah.
People can maybe check it out. I'm trying to find it, but I can't see it there.
All good.
On the screen. Yeah. So that was the that's what I've done. Text analytics in Lewis. And then there it is there, a breakdown of my submission.
There it is, yeah.
So there's a lot going on, man. Like, there's a whole timeline, the technologies.
Excellent. Yeah, and then you've got all the components and then kind of talking through the piece. So yeah, you can see it's been in the works for some time, because I guess for some folks who have kind of been tracking some of the work you've been doing might be thinking this is something fairly fairly new you've been working on, right? But you can see that the bedrock of all of this has been there for quite a while now.
It has, and I've still not got my exit yet. But hey, and you can see there that table, right, Chris? That's where I hope there's no profanity in that table, right? But in that table, you can actually see live data that was captured, the probability of it being a sales lead, and basically I gave a few demos of it to the Twitter dev team and stuff, and but yeah, it's been in the making for quite a while, and all started off with a little WinForm application and an API in C#, and then integrated that with the Twitter API.
Gotcha. Excellent. Oh, that's awesome. So I guess then you went on this journey from hand cranking and going ahead and making it yourself through to text analytics, then text analytics and Lewis. Has there been a continued journey since then as well? How's that kind of evolved over time? Yeah. Because I guess even over those last 4 years or so, if we're talking 2017. Cognitive services has changed a lot in that time as well. New APIs available and many different kind of services available. So how has it continued growing there?
Yeah. So what I found was that trying to crack the ad tech market is really difficult if you're just starting out, and there's a lot of big players, and so I basically parked it right for a year or so.
Sure.
And then I was just busy with other things, and I started to notice that people were really interested in their analytics, and then Twitter had released a new version of their API. Okay, version 2 just last year. That gave you more insights than before. So what I had to basically deactivated the kind of ad tech features. They're still there. And I started to focus on basically the personal analytics and stuff. And then in parallel to this, right, what happened was I did a little bit of freelance work. right?
Sure.
And one of the requirements, it was quite a nice cause actually, right? And what this client wanted was they wanted to be able to do a bunch of different things, right? They wanted to get insights from Twitter, insights from Instagram, and the whole idea of it was for a Nature and Science publication and some researchers that were commissioned to do the work. And what they were looking to do was basically identify the best performing content, not just text, but images. So if you had photographers out in the continent of Africa taking pictures of this animal in this background, how many times was that content being shared? Like the impressions and likes and all that stuff, right? All those metrics that people care about, but they wanted to go a step deeper. And and they wanted to actually look at the content. It's like got a green background, and they wanted to go down to that level. And that's when I started looking towards the computer vision API, because I don't know anything about that. Text, yes, but the image and the deep learning and neural, I didn't. So I was like, hold on a minute, in your service. so I was like, well, listen, this does this, and that's how we can do that.
Yeah.
So that was happening in parallel to some of this stuff, and that was the other. So to answer your question, that was the other service that I had offered up to this particular client. I was going to integrate it, and what I ended up doing was I documented all of that and I turned that into an ebook. And it was 4 blog posts actually, right? And those 4 blog posts turned out to be some of the most popular things on the site.
Yeah.
Because it was like what I found was like from .NET developers, there wasn't anything really that showed you how to go from A through to Z with the Instagram Graph API in .NET and C#.
Right.
So I started to document it all from my own learning, and so I could go back to it, and it really started to resonate with people. And then I took it a step further, right? So I just gave away the ebook, and then I done a version 2, but version 2 came with the code, full app, an API, and then I put it up on a website called Gumnode, and it's up there for like a bunch of quid, and people have been buying it from time to time, which was cool, which is something that I never thought about. But to wind it right back with it was computer vision, and then with the advent of me noticing there was like a real interest in people exploring their analytics, and a lot of people want to grow their followers on Twitter, right? And how the analytics that can be used from the Twitter development API to help you better understand your audience, what resonates with them, when they're most active, when they're most likely to be receptive. And those were the kind of the other services. So I deactivated like the ad tech stuff because it was just it was a massive nut to crack for like a one-man thing. So yeah, that was that really.
Gotcha. No, awesome. And I think it's interesting hearing even the trend of the world is really what we're talking about there, right? That initially when you started some of this, it was really focused on the ad side, but I think what you've seen over the last few years with YouTubers, with gaming, with all these different other areas where everyone is becoming an influencer, right? So everyone has their kind of own brands that they're trying to manage. It's not just about these big companies anymore. It's about, people like me who are doing a podcast as well, right? And building up that blog site and all of these kind of things. I'm very conscious of what resonates on Twitter, what resonates on Facebook and YouTube and all these different places. And I think, you've really spotted the fact that everyone's now really interested in these analytics and how you kind of help grow that share there of, the community that you're following, the followers you have, etc., etc. So, has much then changed in terms of how you think about that problem? Because I guess, there are things as we've been scrolling through the blog site there as well that you've got there. you've got like the Twitter fire hose you need to go and consume from, for example, and all these other pieces. I guess there's maybe now a few different moving parts that you need to think about how you ingest the data into your own systems and then how you go and process that efficiently and all these things. I guess architecturally, has it changed much of how you were thinking about the problem originally there?
Yeah, like it's been frantic because I do it in my spare time,
Yeah.
and it has evolved like, oh man. So it was a C# API
Mm.
with a Windows Forms app on the front end. You click the button and it done this. It was
Yeah.
really simple. And then I was like, well, this has to be really. And when I started to join those dots a few years back, I was like, well, this has to be a service that runs 24/7.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, right. I says the quickest way that I can do this is this is embarrassing, man. But a console application, right?
Yep.
So I just had a console application and repurposed the stuff that was from the API that was in the WinForm app, dropped it in there with a timer, and that was like the kind of first evolution of the service,
Yeah.
right?
Gotcha.
Right. And then, you okay, son? Okay, right. So it was a console application for to crunch the data, and then sorry about that. And then and then that I was like, well, I need to when I started to build out the web application because like, I want to commercialize this a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to start rebuilding it and say like Azure functions and stuff like that, which is something that I probably would have picked now.
Yeah.
But I had to build out a whole end-to-end solution.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so I took the console app and I pushed it into a web job in Azure.
Yep.
And switched on the app insights with a custom logger, just to give me that, paint that picture of where it was at, what it was processing.
Yeah.
So console application that turned into a web job, and then in Azure I was having an app service, Azure App Service,
Mm-hmm.
with Azure SQL database at the back end.
Nice.
And I never like this. See, like, for people that are maybe listening, going to watch this, like one of the things I would say if they're thinking about doing something like this is like, take a note of like log like hell, capture metrics about how much data you're processing, and try and get a handle on your costings, because especially if you're consuming like public data, because it can be really hard.
Yeah.
To figure out which price plan or price point you need.
Mm-hmm.
I found that kind of tricky from the outset. So that's the kind of side note, I suppose. So the Azure SQL App Service, Web Jobs, and .NET, C#. Those are kind of like the high level things.
Nice.
In terms of the application, I tried to keep it simple,
Mm-hmm.
and then in terms of processing credit card payments, use Stripe.
Gotcha. So you offload all of that complexity then to someone who's built to deal with it, right? Because like you say, you're a one-man shop there, and I think as soon as you add something like PCI compliance into the mix, that's full-time job then, right? So
oh hey, I freaked out when I got the email. I was like, I don't know anything about this. So and then the more I read into it, as you quite rightly said, I just think I'd kind of outsourced that.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me on to like another point actually, is like I didn't want to worry about scaling and stuff, and there's times where I was asked to demo this.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the good things about having it up in the cloud was that, given that you've seen behind the Wizard of Oz curtain here, but whenever I'd like have to be given a demo, I would just change the I would basically give the app service some juice.
Yep.
But that goes back to like the metrics and stuff, because the other side is so that helps with performance and worries about scaling. And I remember reading something, and it's like, not once has anybody who is just starting out ever had to worry about scaling, right? I always remembered that. So it was built frantically. I thought, I'll get it out there, I'll worry about scalability later. That was just being able to offload that kind of scalability or potential scalability issue is really helpful. I just, it's a few sliders in Azure. The other final part really in the architecture is the Twitter Dev API.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so those are the kind of key parts.
Nice. No, and I think there's a few nice things in what you've said there, right? I think you mentioned along the way, if you kind of did it again, you'd maybe look at something like serverless and Azure Functions. And I think the important bit, right, is all of us could get into this mode of analysis paralysis and, look at all of these different options. And when this new shiny Azure service comes along, which happens in the cloud, right, because it's constantly new things coming out or improvements to the services that are there, ultimately, and I think this is an important thing, right, with what you're building here, is at some point you need to put a stake in the ground and say, right, here's the service. Maybe in the future I might look at re-architecting this. Maybe we'll look at changing things up. But for now, this is kind of V1 and this is what I'm going to go with, and get some users onto the platform and start getting that feedback. And I think what I like in there, what you said as well, is about telemetry, logging, metrics, etc. I'm a big fan of that. We talk a lot about DevOps and about these kind of concepts on the show as well, and it actually relates to one of the other series that I'm working on at the minute. And we've been talking about kind of game development, and really similar idea, right? What we're talking about here with what you're building, we've mentioned it a few times, but just to really pull the point out for anyone listening, is you're building a service. You're not building an application that people kind of consume as and when they want. It's a service that is there 24/7. It has to be up. It has to be bringing in all of that data. Like you mentioned, that might flux because of how many followers you've got or how many people you're following and all of these kind of things. You can't really assume that I'm the same as you, is the same as whichever kind of Twitter user. So you've got to be able to understand how the system is actually running and actually ingesting all that data. And metrics is only really the way that you can do that, right? You need to have that real understanding of the system. So I think there's some really great points there. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so true. Because without the metrics really help you.
Yeah.
Because the other side to it is you've got to pay for Twitter data as well, right?
Okay.
Right, so you have to, when you get to a certain level, you've got to pay. Like, it ain't for free. So if you're serious about it, you really have to be tracking what you're consuming. Either in the Azure end or at the Twitter end.
Yeah.
And as you just mentioned earlier about like putting a stake in the ground, it's so true. Like, there's bits of the code that I'll be totally transparent that I am not proud of, but it works, right? And like, when at some point I would like to upgrade the various parts of the stack, but for the time being, like, it's running, it's working, and Azure Functions even weren't a thing when I started this, like that, and then like if it's given like the time constraints, it's like I just don't have the resource to re-architect an entire thing. When I do, it'll be a phased thing. And one of the aspects of this, Chris, is that I've got basically I gave away about 20 or 30% of the API. I open sourced it.
Yeah.
And it's up there on NuGet and GitHub as well. And that is in .NET Core, and I actually used that. That is built to use the new Twitter API, and I actually used that to service the back-end web job. So I'm trying to like do it, but hey, limited time.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? Is, as you say, you've got to prioritize things. You're a one-stop shop kind of single dev working on this, right? And your time is precious. You've got the little one there in the background as well. You've got to prioritize the time, and I think that's like any project. So I think the approach you're taking, right, is completely reasonable. And there are things that on my spare time, aside from the show, I've been working on some open source stuff, and I think all of us have these grand ideas. I'm gonna boil the ocean, I'm gonna do this great big project, but reality has to hit in at some point, doesn't it? And you have to kind of prioritize what bits you're going to focus on and kind of gradually build up. And I think what you're doing is sensible there, so it makes complete sense. I think something, maybe if we shift gears a little bit, and I guess we've been talking about the architecture and the service itself, and we've been talking a bit about what it does. I think there was something recently, actually, that you tweeted about, and well, a few things you've tweeted about, actually, collecting a list of people blogging, a list of people doing YouTubing and podcasting and whatnot. And I won't spoil the part of the story. I'll let you kind of explain it. But I think it was just a really great example of how you've gone ahead and used your own platform to solve, I guess, an opportunity in the community there as well.
That's right. This took me by surprise, actually. And just the other day there, I in the community spirit thing, really, I just blasted out a tweet and I said, listen, hey, who's got a blog? Because I know there's lots of great people out there that don't really get the recognition that they probably should. And I don't have like a massive following or anything like that, but there's people that are maybe just starting out and stuff. So I thought, why not try and help some other people, right? So I sent out a tweet saying, hey, does anybody have a blog? Let's raise awareness about this. So that started to get a bit of traction, traction for me anyway. And lots of people started to chime in. And then at one point, like my phone just broke. The notifications just stopped working. Right. And then it started to get to, 50, 100, 200, 300, like 400 replies. And I was like, because the original plan was I was just going to retweet it after a few days. And I was like, you know what? I was like, this probably deserves like a dedicated resource. And I was like, I know how to do that using the API. I'll use my NuGet package on my GitHub repo. And then and I knew it would only have taken maybe 20 or 30 lines of code, but then I was like, well, I'm going to have to store it, then I'm going to have to parse it. I was like, right. And then I should have, I'm quite embarrassingly, I'm going to admit this. I was like, I could use my own SaaS.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you can set up a social listening campaign on one of the tiers, or all of the tiers actually. And if you know the thread ID or the conversation ID of the tweet, you can then run and collect that data 24/7. So that's what I've done. And it basically harvested all the tweets within 30 minutes or 40 minutes or something. Excuse me. So then I had this, I've got a normalized database, and I ran a query, right? So you can see there on the screen that basically I had to pass in the conversation ID, and that was it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a few mouse clicks to set up the campaign, and then as we can see down here in the red box, you can see it collected because all the data gets broken down into its constituent parts, like URLs that are in tweets, people who are mentioned, topics that are discussed, and basically I wrote that query and in Azure SQL, and I had all the data, and I was like, all right. I was like, well, I got to this point, it was like 400 plus blogs as of this week. I was like, I don't want to write a dynamic web application. I don't want to write code. I was trying to be really lazy about this because it was an off-the-cuff thing, right? I was like, I don't want an app service. I don't want the cost of running. I don't want a database. I don't want I was like, right. So I literally highlighted the data set and SQL Management Studio, right? When that screenshot, copied it, pasted it into Excel, and then I was like, I'm going to format that, and I done some like string concats to generate the hyperlinks, the href, because I had like user information as well as part of the data set when it collected all the blog URLs.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I get the HTML, I'm just going to throw it up into a static application. Now, this whole static thing in Azure is kind of new to me, right? So there's the tweets, and that's where we're at with that, right? Now, I thought, well, why stop at blogs? So over the course of the next few days, I've done the same for podcasts, and then done the same for YouTube channels, and they started to get similar traction. And I documented all of this in one of my most recent blogs, and I just ran through the process. So as of today, I think there's about 700 plus resources submitted by the community in all of these areas that you can see here, and more, right? And more. And I'm going to publish that in a few days. I mean, the URL will be horrible. It'll be something like, blah blah blah.azurewebsites.net. Maybe if somebody's watching or listening to this, they can come up with a better naming, but we'll crowdsource or crowdfund the domain name registration. But this whole thing was, it started off the back of a tweet. So like, where was I going with that story? But like the whole listening aspect is really powerful, because I personally, right, for me, like, we are drowning in content, and Google, Bing, wherever you're going to go for your search, it's fine. But this was a very quick way to curate resources for people that have got similar interests to you, that already exist within your current follower graph. Mm-hmm. Chances are you already know them as well. So there's a bit of a rapport there, and you may not be as hesitant to reach out and maybe ask questions. But it kind of blew my mind that it got the engagement that it did. I mean, people could get lots more engagement than me on stuff like that. But now there's going to be, in the next few days, there's going to be a resource with probably close to 1,000 topics. And hey, Chris, it wasn't just technology. There was podcasts and channels and blogs about personal development, well-being, mental health, people management. It wasn't all just about the ones and zeros. And it was an eye-opener for me, because it got me thinking about different ideas for the tooling, because there's another feature in the tool that will basically give you a graphic of what all of your followers are talking about, and you can see it there with the green and the pink if you scroll up a little bit. So see that tree map there, it will group by the sort of topics, top 5 per topic. So your followers, what they're talking about, what the top 5 products your followers are talking about, the top 5 locations they're coming from, and it really just opens up a few different ideas. And the campaign thing, hey, it's went arms and legs, and now there's going to be a resource soon for everybody to check out.
Exactly. No, I like I tweeted the other day, right? I think it just really shows the power of the platform that you've built, and that you were able to kind of almost pivot it and go, right, here's a problem I've got, I'm going to point it at that and see what happens. The power of social media and just crowdsourcing and crowd gathering, effectively, all of those different places. And now suddenly you've got a directory of content, which is a really, I won't call it a happy accident, but it is almost that, right? You said that you came into this just thinking, right, let's go and tweet and see what's out there. But being able to put all these puzzle pieces together and form that, I think just also, not just because you're on the call, right? But I said it on Twitter. I think it really showcases the power of what you've built here and what you're bringing together with this power of a tool that can do social listening. And I know I've had it on my list to go and sign up for ages, so I will surely be doing that once we've finished chatting here as well, because I can see like the power of just being able to understand that. And I'll be honest, right now I don't. I need to do a better job myself. But I think there's a lot of power in all of this data and getting this insight. So I just love seeing how from the beginning of our discussion we were talking about like the theory and almost that masters and theoretical side of it, taking it all the way to the end, and how you've got this tool now which you can go and point it to a real scenario, and you have that end result there with, again, a blog post that you've been able to go ahead, write up about it and see the end to end there. It's just absolutely awesome.
Thank you. That's it's much appreciated. The one of the kind of the insights for me that was pretty interesting was the heat map about the times, about where people are active, and I thought about that because I was like, the time slots for me personally were from Wednesday to Friday after about maybe 6-7 o'clock in the evening, and then I thought about that and I was like, that makes sense, because I can tell from like the Google analytics that most of the people that read my blog are typically overseas, and it would be in those sort of time zones where they probably would be active. Now, part of the tweet scheduler thing, you can basically set up time slots and schedule your content and drip feed it out based on a schedule of your picking, right? So you give it a set of time slots and you say, right, I want to post out tweets on this date, and then it'll generate a schedule for you. But then, so by using the heat map coupled with the tree map, which is like that green, pink, and blue thing that we looked at earlier, you can, yeah, that. So you can sort of figure out what they're talking about, when they're talking about it, and then you can stitch together those two pieces of information and say, right, I'm going to set up a schedule around these data points with this content at this time. And I'm not aggressively doing that. I've got a kind of loose schedule. I like to keep it open. But that is, it was little things like that, especially like with the heat map, I was like, that's where people are really most active. So, because like if people are just starting it on Twitter, right, one of the biggest problems and complaints about the platform is it's difficult to find people that share similar interests, and you're like just shouting into the void, and it can take a long time to build up any kind of decent engagement. That's why a lot of people drop off. But this can help accelerate that, because you can figure out when they're active, what they're talking about, and then you can chime into the discussion. And then that's a big part of it, being able to, get more out of the platform, really.
No, I'm with you. No, it's awesome. Really great story. Really great to see, as I say, how it came from the theoretical side all the way into building the tool, and some of those problems that you're able to think of them and suddenly point the solution towards it. So I just love the kind of end-to-end story there. So I think we've talked for a little while now here. I guess maybe in terms of starting to wrap us up here, if there's anyone listening who's thinking maybe, I'm inspired listening to this, I want to go ahead and either go and do something around social, or I want to build a software as a service, or I want to start building something because listening to this has made me think, actually, I've got some ideas and I want to try and apply a solution to it. What are maybe some of the things top of mind that along that journey you think, I wish I knew that before I started, or I shouldn't have done that thing? What are maybe some of those key moments or key ideas that stick out along the way for you?
That's a really good question. It's kind of tricky to give like one generic, or a few generic, because I think everybody's situation will be very different. So I'll just speak at it from my perspective, my context. So I was doing this, completely in my personal time, evenings and weekends, and it's been through a bunch of different iterations. But the kind of key things I would say that if anybody wants to start out on that journey and build something that's similar, or has ideas about building something because everybody wants to build their own sort of SaaS type thing, don't they? And they want to. What I would say is first thing is pick something that you're really interested in, because it will be hard. You are going to have to carve out the time, whether it be evenings or weekends or up early in the morning. And if you're not really interested in the thing that you're trying to build or the problem that you're trying to solve, you're just going to get bored or frustrated, and you're going to give up. So that's the first thing, is like pick something that you're really interested in. Before you even write any code, I would do a lot of research and see if there's any demand for it. I think it's a myth that it has to be unique and novel. I think the world's big enough that there's a slice of the pie for everybody. So it doesn't have to be unique. It doesn't have to be the first. It could just be different, slightly better, and it would be good. And so that would be the second thing. And then the third thing would be just start building it, man. When you get a tiny bit of validation, just build it. You know me, Chris. Just ship it, man.
I know. I was gonna plug at the end there. I was thinking this was building up to it. Just go and do it. Dance with the fear, I think it was that you said, wasn't it? So for anyone who's wondering what on earth we're talking about right now, we did a live stream. It must have been a month maybe ago now, where we were talking about blogging, and some of the same themes have kind of cropped up in this session as well. So I think what a great way to end it, right? Just go and do it. Just go and grab that idea, run with it, and actually go and build and try it out. There's no time like the present.
Definitely. Try it out. Doesn't stick. Try something different.
Excellent. Jamie, thank you so much. Really enjoyed talking with you all about this, and really excited to see where this goes. I think, like I say, over the weekend, I saw that blog post come out, and just great to see how you can kind of point this to solve the problems that you were thinking up there, right? So really interested to see where it all goes. So thank you for telling the story here, sir.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me on the show, Chris. It's been fun.
So there we go, folks. we've gone ahead and looked at social opinions and how Jamie has gone ahead and built a software as a service. So you know what to do. If you've gone ahead and liked this episode, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and please hit that notification bell so you know as soon as there is new content. And of course, we have to also make sure that we give another call out to social opinion as well, because I think there's obviously a great platform there for you to go and understand if you are interested in your own kind of social media followers or trying to understand and engage with audiences. There's a great tool there to go and help you do that. So again, we've had it on the screen throughout a lot of the time there, but socialopinion.co.uk, go and take a look as well, because Jamie's got a great tool that he's building there. So with that, thank you all for listening in. Please stay safe, please stay healthy, and until the next time, thank you for watching, and bye for now.